On January 1st, 2025, hundreds of school bus and bus drivers in Zhoucheng, Shandong went on strike. They were protesting against the Zhoucheng Guoyun Bus Company for unpaid wages and overdue social insurance contributions. One driver revealed that the company had not paid salaries for 8 months and had neglected social insurance payments for 10 years. When this issue was posted on social media, the bus company reportedly filed complaints to have the post removed. As the Lunar New Year approaches, wage-related disputes have been increasing across China. In Tongao Town, Liaoning Province, piles of garbage were seen everywhere on the streets. Plastic bags and paper scraps scatter in the wind. The man in the video criticizes the situation, saying without paying workers, even sanitation workers are at their breaking point. According to the citizen who uploaded the video, local sanitation workers stopped working due to unpaid wages. This resulted in garbage bins overflowing, with waste flying around in the streets. The individual expressed hope for a quick resolution to the problem. Local residents shared images with trash bins overflowing, with some piles spilling onto the ground. One caption read, "Tongao, the hometown I dearly miss." Near the fruit and vegetable market, the streets were similarly covered with trash and left unswept. According to Chinese media, staff from the Tongao town government responded, stating that higher authorities had not allocated funds, leading to the wage delays. The town government is reportedly working to resolve the issue. Some comments online suggested that the financial situation in many parts of Liaoning province is dire. One person stated, "In several areas, government finances have completely dried up." In recent years, China's economy has been in a steady decline. Revenue from land sales by local governments has plummeted, creating financial strain and impacting municipal services such as sanitation and transportation. On December 17th, a large number of sanitation workers in Xi'an staged a roadblock near Huaqing Palace in Lintong District to demand unpaid wages from the past 5 months. The incident became a trending topic on Weibo. Video circulating on social media showed a significant crowd of sanitation workers wearing uniforms labeled Xi'an Sanitation. They gathered near Huaqing Palace. Although the exact number of participants has not been mentioned, footage suggested at least several hundred people. The workers reported that they had not received their wages for 5 months. A representative from the Lintong District Urban Management Bureau's Sanitation Center explained that the sanitation workers were employed through outsourcing, and the government had delayed payments to third-party contractors. As a result, the contractors could not pay the workers. In total, the wages of sanitation workers have been delayed for 5 months. The representative added that relevant personnel were addressing the issue and had promised to pay wages by the end of the month. The government is also exploring alternative funding sources to resolve the matter. The wage protests by Xi'an sanitation workers drew significant attention online. One commenter noted, "Outsourcing skips social insurance. They barely pay wages, and now they're delayed? Funds must have been diverted." Another person who claimed to have similar experiences wrote, "I'm also a sanitation worker. My wages have been delayed for 4 months." Someone else added, "It's been 8 months here without pay." Others highlighted broader financial struggles, saying, "Local governments are struggling. Here, teachers used to receive the next month's wages by the end of the current month. Now they're only paid at the end of the current month." Following the wage protest in Xi'an, sanitation workers in Litang Town, Nanning, Guangxi also went on strike over unpaid wages, leaving garbage uncollected across the streets. Photos showed roads and sidewalks littered with leaves, plastic bags, and phone boxes. Some vehicles and motorbikes were parked amid the trash piles. The video uploader stated that sanitation workers in Litang Town, Guangxi, had been on strike for 2 days, leaving the streets filthy. A local source identified the location in the video as Jinglong Avenue, where sanitation workers typically earn around 2,000 yuan per month. Due to several months of unpaid wages, workers have been on strike for days. According to Litang Town Sanitation Station, some sanitation workers have experienced wage arrears for 2 to 3 months and have resorted to striking to show their dissatisfaction. A staff member explained that the sanitation workers' wages are not directly paid by the management station, but come from county-level financial allocations. A deputy director at the sanitation station confirmed the situation, stating that several months' wages were indeed overdue. The contractor had not received payments, leaving no funds to pay workers. The Deputy director noted that some workers were persuaded to return to cleaning temporarily, with additional personnel brought in from other stations. However, most of the contractor's workers have not resumed work. The station employs 60 to 70 workers, but none have received their wages and are only conducting emergency cleaning for now. Records from the Guangxi Government Procurement Network show that in 2022, the Litang town government outsourced urban street cleaning services to Zhongwang Environmental Technology in Guangdong. The 3-year contract was worth approximately 16.8 million yuan. According to the contract, no advance payments would be made. Instead, the town's finances would allocate monthly payments to the Comprehensive Administrative Law Enforcement Bureau, which would then transfer the funds to the contractor by the 25th of the following month based on performance assessments. In response to the incident, someone commented and said, "Sanitation services are outsourced these days, with layers of deductions. And in the end, wages don't get paid. Sanitation workers earn a meager 2,000 yuan a month, and they're still owed wages for months. It's utterly shameless." A legal specialist vlogger noted, "This is yet another consequence of outsourcing. While outsourcing was originally intended to optimize resource allocation and reduce costs, it has become a means to shift risks and shirk responsibility. With outsourcing companies acting as a barrier, sanitation workers can't demand wages directly from the government, leaving them caught in the middle. Those in charge have no money, and those with money don't care. How can this work?" Another commentator said, "Litang town can't even pay its sanitation workers, with wages overdue for months. This shows that in these times, good opportunities are hard to come by. Whether it's stimulating consumption or encouraging investment, you'll often end up paying someone else's debts." According to Radio Free Asia, independent Chinese commentator Ji Feng noted that outsourcing public services often leads to multiple layers of exploitation. The contractors who sign the agreements with the government are not always the ones doing the hiring, making it harder to protect workers' rights. Ji Feng added that the incident highlights the severe financial crisis at the local level. He said, "Now garbage can't even be collected. In some places, even teacher salaries are delayed. This was unheard of in the past, but it's happening now. Sanitation funding comes from financial allocations, which shows that there's no money. When wages can't be paid, workers start protesting, and local governments scramble to find funds to pay part or all of the wages to calm things down. This domino effect will only grow, and more departments will face similar issues." Current affairs commentator Fang Yuan noted that sanitation workers in Nanning opted to strike rather than protest, possibly to avoid direct confrontation with the government and prevent stability measures. However, despite the public outcry, the issue remains unresolved, reflecting worsening exploitation of vulnerable groups amid economic difficulties. Fang Yuan added, "With national finances in poor shape and expenditures exceeding revenue, many areas are struggling to fund municipal services and public projects. Sanitation workers, mostly rural migrants, perform the hardest jobs and are among the most vulnerable groups suffering from the current economic downturn." In recent years, China's government revenue has been declining. Authorities have repeatedly issued directives urging all levels of government to tighten their belts and prepare for tough times, describing this as a long-term policy. As of November 2024, China's Ministry of Finance reported that local government debt had reached 46.5 trillion yuan. Central University of Finance and Economics professor Wen Lai-Cheng explained that Guangxi's local debt ratio, which is capped at 300%, likely includes hidden debt, representing a broader debt definition. In June 2023, Guangxi's government announced plans to clarify its relationship with state-owned enterprises, requiring these entities to bear sole responsibility for their debts without government backing. While Guangxi is no longer one of the hardest-hit regions for local government debt in China, its capital, Nanning, has struggled to pay for cleaning services. This highlights severe cash flow shortages at the county level and suggests that the central government's debt reduction plans are insufficient to address local fiscal deficits. Since 2019, China's State Council, or its subordinate Labor Protection Task Force, has convened annual meetings at the end of each year to address unpaid wages for workers in state-owned enterprises and government projects. Despite these efforts, the issue persists year after year. As early as 2003, then-Premier Wen Jiabao emphasized during a visit to Yunnan County, Chongqing, that money owed to farmers must be repaid. The Chinese government has also introduced several measures to address wage arrears, including policies in 2016 and 2020 aimed at ensuring timely payment for migrant workers. However, the issue of unpaid wages remains unresolved to this day. According to a report released by China's National Audit Office on December 22, 2023, 10 provinces and cities recorded new arrears totaling 7.6 billion yuan since March 2023. This occurred despite establishing debt tracking systems to address existing overdue payments. In June 2024, the National Audit Office revealed that state-owned enterprises in 24 regions across China had illegally raised funds from the public by issuing financial products and borrowing through financial asset exchanges. By the end of 2023, these funds totaled 37.3 billion yuan, with 11.3 billion yuan classified as hidden government debt. Most of this money was used to cover maturing debts and pay employee wages. China's Central News Agency reported that local governments and state-owned enterprises in China have long struggled with unpaid wages owed to public institutions and construction teams. While the central government has prioritized debt reduction, the problem of new arrears continues to emerge. The central government has issued 10 trillion yuan in bonds to tackle local debt. However, Shi Heling, a professor at Monash University's business school in Australia, commented, "The central government can solve at most 1/10 of the problem. What about the remaining 9/10?" Speaking to Voice of America, Shi noted that the wage arrears issue in China is extremely severe, as evidenced by Beijing's need to intervene with central-level directives. He added, "Even the most capable housewife cannot cook without rice. They want to solve the problem, but without money, it's very, very difficult." For example, Ms. Liu, who graduated in 2024, worked as a hotel waitress, but did not receive her salary after a month on the job. Although her agreed monthly wage was 3,000 yuan, about $410, she only managed to recover half of it after negotiating with her supervisor. Given the additional costs for transportation and accommodation, her net income amounted to a loss of 2,000 yuan. Frustrated and helpless, she shared, "This kind of wage arrears happens so often. Employers take advantage of young workers who are new to the workforce." This was not Liu's first experience with unpaid wages. She previously worked for 10 days at a hot pot restaurant, only to be paid a meager 400 yuan, as the manager dismissed her initial agreement of commission-based pay by labeling her as a trainee. Liu added that protesting for wages often has little impact, especially for young women like herself, who lack social experience. Many workers, she said, face similar challenges. Wage arrears are not limited to blue-collar workers. Many white-collar employees in China are also affected. In November 2024, dozens of medical staff in Shanwei, Guangdong Province, gathered in the lobby of a public hospital. They were demanding unpaid salaries and bonuses. On December 1, 2024, Chinese media outlet Xiaoxiang Morning Post reported that a pilot for Joy Air had gone without pay for 9 months. Some employees at the airline resorted to side jobs, such as food delivery or ride-hailing, to make ends meet. According to Kevin Slayton, director of Freedom House's China Dissent Monitor, labor protests in China began earlier than usual in 2024, with wage-related protests intensifying in September and October. By the end of the year, protests over unpaid wages surged compared to previous years, which typically peaked 2 months before the Lunar New Year. The China Dissent Monitor documented 937 protests from July to September, with 41% related to labor disputes. Economic grievances accounted for 3/4 of all dissent incidents, including unpaid wages and stalled housing projects. Among China's highly contentious petition cases, wage disputes made up 10%, with the actual proportion of wage protests likely even higher. Kevin Slayton told Voice of America that China's real estate crisis has led to widespread wage arrears for construction workers. The industry has been in trouble for years. Recently, major developers like Country Garden and Sunac have fallen into debt crises, leaving many construction projects across the country unfinished. Since the real estate sector accounts for 1/4 of China's economy and is a key driver for growth, the crisis is now spreading to other industries. Data indicates that Guangdong and Shanxi have the highest number of protests per capita. Slayton explained that Guangdong's status as a manufacturing hub with a large migrant worker population contributes to frequent wage-related protests. However, the reasons for Shanxi's high protest rate remain unclear. Slayton noted that wage protests also occurred after the global financial crisis due to economic slowdowns. However, the current situation is different because China's local governments and businesses now carry much higher debt levels. This makes government stimulus measures less effective, and early onset wage protests are becoming the new normal. Despite the risks, many workers in China still choose public protests to assert their rights. Slayton explained that official channels, such as petitions and administrative complaints, often have too many restrictions or move too slowly, leaving issues unresolved. Public protests, on the other hand, can pressure companies into compromise or prompt government intervention. Shi Heling said wage arrears are widespread in China's private sector, with the construction, automotive manufacturing, and export industries being the hardest hit in 2024. Shi pointed out that construction workers often lack proper contracts protections, making wage arrears in the sector particularly severe. In the automotive industry, China's massive investment in electric vehicle production has increased competition, leaving many companies operating at a loss. To cope, EV assembly plants frequently demand that suppliers lower prices or extend payment terms. Shi said, companies owe money to suppliers, and suppliers owe wages to workers. It's a vicious cycle. He added that China lacks mechanisms to amplify workers' voices. There's no independent judicial system, no unions, and non-governmental organizations have been expelled. Workers, left with no other options, often resort to extreme measures. Many violent incidents in 2024 were linked to unresolved social injustices and the absence of proper channels for redress. Additionally, American and European tariff barriers have hindered Chinese exports, creating weak performance in 2024. Export businesses in the Yangtze and Pearl River Delta facing cash flow issues, leading to unpaid wages for workers and overdue payments to suppliers. Shi warned that financially struggling companies are using desperate tactics, including withholding disability benefits, pensions, and reducing healthcare payments. He said, in the long run, these practices will have a profoundly negative impact on social stability.